Welcome everyone. Welcome to this series about how to lead a company through the crisis. So I'm Fabien Pinckaers. I'm the founder and the CEO of Odoo. And today I'm going to explain you how we manage Odoo during the crisis and what are our tips and advices in such tough times. Before, a little bit about Odoo. First, for those who don't know Odoo, it's just a suite of business apps. It's the number one worldwide. We just passed Oracle a few days ago in terms of number of paying customers. It's open source and we cover basically all the needs your company may have. But let's continue. So this is the KPIs about our company. In blue, you have the number of employees from year over year. And as you can see, in 2005, I was alone. 2004, I was alone too. And then we slowly grew and exploded the number of employees. Today, we have 900 employees. Last year, we had 500. And next year, we're going to get 1,400. And in terms of revenue, it's the same explosion. We are currently running at 100 millions of euro per year this year. But when people look at this graph, they think that our success is because of our product. It's very easy to say, okay, but Odoo can make it and it's easy for them because they have a good product. But actually, it's the other way. If today we are that successful, it's not because of the product. The product is good because we had a good execution, we survived during very tough times, and that's what I'm gonna explain you today is how we did it. So when you look at the growth of the revenue and the people, it feels big. But the reality is this. That was the graph of the cash of Odoo over the past years. And as you can see, over the first years, from 2002 to 2010, I basically had no money at all on the bank account. So I used to pay the salaries like the 10th of the 15th of the next month because I couldn't afford paying my employees on time. Of course, it was catastrophic, but I lived like that for years and we survived and we worked nights to compensate. And that was very hard for the first year, but we made it. And then we had a big spike, like a nightmare again, because we had to survive with a very big down in our cash. And then we succeeded to stabilize in 2012 and 13. Then big spike again in 2014. We became organically profitable and we grew organically. Money doesn't last long and then you have to burn and stabilize again, and that's the real life of a company. And that is the same timeline, but on the business model maturity. I started selling t-shirts and software for auction houses and custom developments. I was alone at the time, and then we had to switch to an implementation service company, so we were selling services on OpenERP, which was the old Odoo. But we struggled to grow with the service company. So at some point we did a pivot in the third pivot to switch to a maintenance contract with Odoo Enterprise Maintenance. And then we had difficulties with the churn on the second year because customers were saying, hey, your software is working great. Why should you pay the maintenance? Then we had to do a pivot again and switch to an open core business model, which is the current one. And so basically we could say that every 3 to 4 years, the company is different and we pivot and we switch to something else. So in order to sustain such a growth, we had to change and evolve a lot. Okay, let's have a look at this video, which is the evolution of the graph of the cash of the company. So it all started in 2000 with 8 million euro in 2014. And then we burned the cash because we recruited a lot of people. We were rich, so we recruited and we burned the cash and we burned the cash. And we were burning 1 million euro per month. So could you imagine? And then we had only 2 months of cash available on our bank account. So burning 1 million per month, only 2 million, it means 2 months of cash. Of course, it's very stressing. And then we changed a lot of things. We launched new success pack. We launched yearly subscriptions, a new release of the system, a new business model. When things get tough, you try different things. We succeeded to stabilize. Even though we are in a crisis today, my feeling is that the tough crisis we have had was not the one of 2008 because of external, we know the crisis. Most of the difficulties we've had were internal difficulties where we had tough times because of our product market fit or business model, or we run out of cash or growing too fast or too slow. So I would say I learned a lot during these very tough times. Sometimes it was for a few years that I didn't have cash. And the idea of today is that I will explain you everything I learned over the past year so that you maybe can use that during this time. Okay, so what happens in times of crisis? The first advice I have is when sales slow down in the short term, it's basically what we have today. It's very difficult to sell to companies nowadays because a lot of companies close or they work from home. So the sales are slowing down for the short term. My advice is to focus on initiatives that pay off in the long term. As an example for us, for Odoo, because we can't sell easily new implementation project, we refocused on offering implementation project at 50% discount, but we did not discount our subscription so that all the customers that we are acquiring now will benefit us in the long term because they will pay their subscription over the years. And we can do that for a lot of things because our service team had less activities because of the crisis. We refocused them on improving our implementation methodology. That way we'll be more efficient in the long term. So when you can work on the short term because of a crisis, my first advice is look at what you can build now so that you will benefit from it in the long term. And there are plenty of things. Could be improve the way you operate, could be launching new products, investing in research and development, could be focusing on more long-term revenues like subscription rather than short-term ones like projects. There are a lot of things you can think of when it's that. Then in every crisis there is opportunity. And the key is to find your opportunities within this crisis. Here we are all working from home at Odoo because whether we are in Belgium, Hong Kong or San Francisco, all our teams are working from home. So we were thinking about what are the opportunities for us during this crisis. And one of the biggest pain points we have had since, I would say, the last 2 years was to recruit the developers we need in Belgium, in our R&D department, research and development department. So we struggled over the past months and years to recruit as much as we wanted. This year we will go from 900 to 1,400 people, so we have to recruit massively, and we have very high standards in the people we want to recruit. So even though we reduced our marketing costs because of the crisis, what we did is to increase and to speed up our recruitment of the developers during the crisis. So we launched new plans. We offered 10,000 a welcome bonus of 10,000 euro to new developers that join us. We accelerated the advertising of our developer job offers because of the crisis. And there are opportunities everywhere. So when a crisis starts, the first thing to do is to rethink everything and say, what is the opportunity? It could be marketing. I mean, during a crisis, nobody invests in marketing. So it could be the opportunity, if your business allows to sell during the crisis, to increase your marketing budgets right now. Or it could be you have time to, the main investment deals are done during crisis times. Okay, but what do we do when things get bad? The first things we should do is to focus on a small number of key initiatives. So when things are easy, you can launch a lot of projects and try different things and try to innovate. When things get tough, you don't have 10 bullets to shoot. You only have 1 or 2 things to try, and you have to focus hard on these things to be sure that you can pivot or leverage something that will help you survive. So the key is to focus on a smaller number of key initiatives. So for me, as an example, as the CEO of Odoo, I decided to focus way more in the product development because that's our opportunity during the crisis. If we cannot sell that much, it's better to make our product evolve faster than the competition. I have 2 or 3 key initiatives that I follow way more than usual, and I try to reduce all the others, the focused tasks. Like for me, it was meeting customers and things like that I reduced a lot. But what do you do when things get very bad? So of course, you have to reduce your cost, and unfortunately for a lot of companies, reducing the cost means dismissing employees. My main advice, if you have to do that, is don't do it in waves. We are all entrepreneurs, and like every entrepreneurs, we are optimistic. So we always think like, okay, we just need to reduce a little bit the cost, and then it's gonna be better. And then we reduce a little bit the cost, and it's not better. And 3 months after, we say, we still have to reduce a little bit more the cost, and then it's not better. You still have no cash, and then you have to dismiss a few more extra people. But the problem if you do that in waves is that every time you cut in your resources, people will get demotivated. So it's much better to do it only once. But if you do it only once, it's better to do it hard and do like 20 or 30% more than what you would like to. That way it's much safer for the other people that stay in the company, and it compensates the fact that we are all too optimistic and we don't want to dismiss people. So we try everything we can to not do it, but if we have to do it, it's better to do it more so that we only do it once so that we don't demotivate the people. And once you do that, you have to meet everyone and explain them what we will do. Explain them what is the plan. You have to be very clear and transparent about how you proceed. What's critical is to not bullshit your employees. When time gets hard, you have to communicate clearly. It's not easy because you always want your employees or your partners or your customer to perceive the company as being great and working well and so on. So you always want to make things appear like if it's running and there is no issue. The thing is, they are not stupid. If things are difficult, if you are not comfortable right now, they will feel it. So it's better to be transparent, to communicate clearly, but to come with a real action plan. Tell them, okay, we have to reduce the cost, but here is the action plan, here is what we'll do, and here is what will happen. It's very important to do that and to be transparent, because otherwise you will lose all the trust you built over the past years with them. Should you slow down when things get hard? Of course, you have to sometimes. It's okay to slow down, especially in the revenues. But what I used to do is when we have a lot of difficulty is to start. There are things that slow down, like the revenues, acquisition of new customer. But there is one thing that I never slow down is to building up value for the long term. So even though we have less sales, maybe less consultant, less services to do, we always want to build value, capitalize on something so that the company will grow faster when the times will be better. And that's what we did at Odoo. Even in the most difficult times, we always continued to invest massively in research and development to be sure the product gets better. It doesn't pay off in the short term, but in the long term, it allowed us to be where we are today, which is the number one open source management software in the world. And I used to think it's a marathon, not a sprint. So when you think that way, it's very easy to think for the long term. If you look at the numbers of Odoo over the past years, here is the growth of our company. We didn't have very big growth, like 300%, 200%, 400%. It's not like that. What makes big companies a success is because they succeeded to grow over the long term. And that's what we did at Odoo. The average growth over the past 13 years has been 71%. And we didn't do very, very big or a lot of very big years, but what we did is to grow every year and to sustain this growth every year. Of course, we have had some up and downs, but we continuously continue to grow year after year. At the beginning, it's easy. When you are very small, doing 70%, it's easy. But when you have 900 people, it gets much harder to grow at that speed. And the only way to do it is to capitalize and build value for the long term, and this value will pull your company. Survivors. Every fast-growing company goes through very complex moments. I don't know a single company that grew very fast and hyper-growth that didn't have in its lifetime very difficult moments. So it's okay. We should not get demotivated by that. It's normal. If you can grow a large company without complexities. These things are complex. Growing fast is extremely hard. So it's normal to have very difficult moments. One thing I learned is that between the moment I didn't have cash anymore and I had to pay salaries late, and the moment where the bankruptcy was, you have 2 years. It doesn't mean you should know nothing. It just means that you have more time than what you think. There is always ways to push on the deadlines to pay the vendors, to get quick short revenues in order to survive. There are a lot of tricks that you can leverage. And for us, for Odoo, between the moment I have no cash and the moment for bankruptcy, there are 2 years. I never went bankruptcy. I always succeeded to fix the company before. But the good news is that you have time to improve. Of course, sometimes you have to slow down, cut costs, and pivot and do in another way, but you have to fix your issue. But what's important is that you really tackle your issues. It doesn't mean you should not do nothing. And usually tackling the issues is tackling the root cause of your issues. So if your root cause is the profitability, you can't just say, okay, I will sell more or work harder to fix my profitability problem. It won't work. You have to fix your profitability problem, to fix your root cause of the issue. But the good news is that your most difficult times will be just a team of 7 people. We qualify 60,000 leads per month with only, I'm looking at the internet connection. I'm not sure if it's still running well. Yes, looks so. Okay, I'll continue. Okay. And if I look at the way we operate today, we are way more efficient than most companies. We are a fully paperless company. We manage 60,000 leads per month with only 1 lead manager. We are able to generate these 60,000 leads per month with probably less than 15 people in marketing. It's hugely efficient. And the reason why we are so efficient is because all the crises we have had, because we created the company from scratch, we had a lot of difficulties. It forced us to operate at a way more efficient, in a way more efficient way. And the difference between the successful and the unsuccessful companies is that the former survive when the times get tough. So I used to say that because people say, oh, yeah, it's easy, you are a big company, so no, everything is easy for you. It's not. The reason why we are there and we are big is because we succeeded to survive and act efficiently during the crisis. So it's critical to act, and the good news is that if you do it well, your company will get much better, will operate at a way better efficiency than before. For us, we are a very cost-saving company. We are efficient in pretty much everything we do because we created the company from scratch, because we were constrained by the cash all the time. Okay, now what's the role of the CRO when the times get tough? And first, as you grow, the Chief Executive Officer roles becomes more and more the Chief Explanatory Officer. So I like this graph to explain. When you are a small company on the left, everything is decided by you at the beginning. You have your team of 10 people that follows you. It's a good managerial decision. Everything is decided top down. But the more you grow, the more you have to become bottom up. You have to build up on the culture, create innovation from the bottom, and then you have to rely more on the people, create guidance and context rather than deciding everything yourself. So as the company grows, you have to switch from this top-down approach of finding the right decision to a bottom-up approach where you are more an enabler than a decision maker. That's in, I would say, peacetime. But when things get hard, you have to come back to your roots as a small company. When things get hard, in times of crisis, there is no room for individual creativity outside of the core missions. When things get hard, you cannot try 10 different projects and launch innovation projects and different initiatives from different people. When things get hard, you have to focus on 1, 2, or 3 things. You don't need a lot of things to succeed. That will completely change the company, and you have to make it right. And so everything comes back to when you were small, where you have more top-down decision, more guidance, more operational managers who do more rather than managing people. They lead them. And you have to come back to the purple triangle on the left in times of crisis. So depending on the context, you have to switch the way you manage people. But always, especially in times of crisis, but all the time, the key competitive advantage of a lot of top-performing companies is the focus. Focus is so important. And there is an easy way to have a focus, is to say, we will not do that. Saying that we will not do something is way more powerful than saying that the priority is this. Because if you're a good company, your employees all have things to do. They know what they have to do, their job position is clear, and they have a lot of tasks to do in their pipeline. That's great. But the thing is, if you tell them, you should do that, or your priority is this, in addition to the current pipeline that they have, you just add more burden. So they were already working at 110%, and then you are coming with other things. So they will try to do a little bit of the priority, but they will suffer even more and will be burdened by all the tasks to do. The only way to focus efficiently people is to say, we will not do that. By saying that, you reduce things they were doing today so that they can focus on what matters. And I have an example about that. Is when Odoo today is a cloud product. It's one of the most advanced in the cloud. It's a great user interface and so on. But a few years ago, we were a rich application. It was an application that you had to install in GTK. You had to install on the different computers. Most of the key players today in the cloud industry have been built on the cloud industry. They created their product from the cloud directly. Only a very few players succeeded to go from a rich application that you have to install to a clean cloud product. And we did it. And I always consider that one of the reasons why we succeeded, where most of the SaaS players failed to turn from a rich product to a cloud product, which is something completely different way to operate, different way to envision the usability. The reason we succeeded is because instead of saying to our team, now the priority is to go to the cloud, we said to our team, we don't want a single new feature in the product. And for the next 2 years, every time people were coming, I have a good idea, we should do that, we should do this, we always said, no new feature, no new feature, no new feature. And we said that for 1 or 2 years, and that allowed to refocus our team on moving forward to the cloud and the usability. And it allowed to change the mindset of everyone, because we were in a mindset where we were developing the features the customer requested, and the only way to refocus was to say, okay, we stop to do that. And of course, you have to say no to things that you want to do. I know a lot of managers who say no to things that are not important. So you have the feeling that you refocus, like saying, we will not do that. And you know it's not a priority, it's not key. If you really want to focus the company, you have to sacrifice things that you were willing to do. That's especially now in times of crisis, but your company needs you more than customers, project, conference, or social club. I think, in other words, you should not listen to this webinar. You should focus on helping your team, improving the company, building your product, or whatever you do. But it's key for me, as an example, I never participated to social clubs or conference. I never go to conference. I only do it when I am the speaker for marketing reasons. One of the mistakes I did when I was small is that top managers are employees too. So when you recruit, I was young when I grew the company, and I recruited VP of sales, VP of marketing, very great guys, very good. And I always considered that because they were great guys, they were experienced VPs, they knew what to do. They didn't need me. But it was a big mistake. Everyone needs guidance. Everyone needs to evolve. So even your top managers, they need to have guidance to work with you. They need that you treat them like you would have treated every employee. And most companies also have the problem at the middle manager layer. You always work with the people that are less efficient, or you spend more time with them. But even the top performers, they want you to spend time with them so that they can continue to evolve. Don't make the mistake to think that your top performers don't want to evolve. They want to as well. So when things get tough, you have to find sometimes new source of revenue, sometimes new ways to be more efficient or profitable. What I learned over the past years is that having the right pricing is more important than what I thought. It's changed a lot of things, because often when you increase your price by 20%, you probably increase your profitability by 40 or 60%. So there is a huge leverage on the pricing, and so getting to the right price is very critical. It's a mistake I did when I was small. I always underpriced everything I was doing. I was selling my development days at 200 euro per day when I started, and I did that for a few years. I struggled working all the nights. And the business model is critical too. It took me 10 years to find the right one, and it changed everything. You have seen in the graphs when we went to the Odoo Enterprise and Odoo Community business model, everything's changed and we became profitable and we could invest 2 times more in research and development. It changes everything. It's easy for some business model, it's more complex for others. And sometimes it's not the whole business model, but a part of your business model. So as an example, we work a lot with Odoo partners, and the Odoo partners are services companies doing the implementation of Odoo for customers. One of the issues I noticed working with the partner recently is that most of them, they don't sell the maintenance of what they develop. And as a result, they don't have recurring revenues. And it's a big issue in the business model because recurring revenues first is easier, it's higher margin, and it's very easy to sell. And if you don't do that, every year you have to find new customer to sustain your revenues, or to grow, you even have to find even more customer. It gets very complex. When you, in the other way, when you start to build up a recurring revenue of maintenance that are much higher margin, it's easier. It's also better for your customer, because if they pay for maintenance, when they call you because they have issues, you will be there for them. Or when they have to upgrade, you will be there for them. If you don't, you will be the customer will be pissed off, will come to you, but you get no revenue from answering them. So even in the very simple business model, I would say like service company, there are ways to find your new model so that it gets way more efficient so that you can scale. It could be on the way you operate the service, or could be on the way you sell it, or a lot of things. And when you look at a way to grow, to improve your business model, I always thought that it's much easier to be different rather than being better. And that's one of the reasons why Odoo succeeded. We are not better than SAP on Oracle. I mean, they are much stronger than us in marketing. They are much stronger than us in verticals. They have verticalization for healthcare, for NGOs, for a lot of different industries. But we are cheaper, we have a better product, and we are more flexible to customize to the customer needs. And so the reason why we succeed is not because we are better than them. The reason why Odoo is exploding today is because we are different. Because our strength is where the weaknesses are. So what we often do at Odoo is that in terms of product, we invent where we are good, and for the rest, we copy. So we spend a lot of time analyzing different products and competitors to be sure that when we develop something, we don't do something worse than them. We try to do better, but if we failed, we prefer to copy rather than doing our own things. And when you want to grow, one of the key difficulties, one of the key challenge is to scale a sales team. That's very hard. What I used to do, and especially in times of crisis, now that we have money, you have to, when you are in times of crisis, you have to take care on how you spend the money. What I used to do is to start slow, to recruit a few salespeople, like 3 or 5 when I open a new country. And then we wait until they get on target. And only when they get on target, then we can scale. Because if you start scaling a sales team and the processes are not there, and the documents are not there, or you don't have the right people to train the team, it can get very messy, and then you have to start again, fire a few people, restart. It's very hard. But once you have 3 good guys or 2 good guys that are on target, it's very easy to recruit 10 or 20 more. And the 3 good ones will train and educate the other ones, and they prove your process is good, so it's much easier. In order to do that, you have to recruit the VP of sales, and how to find the right VP of sales. I'm more an engineer than a salesperson, so it was very hard for me. And I've been lucky in the past, so I don't have to complain, but I've worked with very great guys. But I noticed a trend in the very good sales manager is that most of the good ones, they continuously train, coach, and do pipeline review with their team. The good sales manager are the ones that coach and train more. It's just based on that. So once you know that, if you want to assess if someone is a good VP of sales, ask him his training material. Ask him to present him how he onboard new users, how he coach his team, or what are his book of advices. And if they have nothing, it's probably better finding another one. And when you grow fast, that's something that has been very difficult for me. The future customers are 10 times more valuable than the current ones. Mostly because the future customers are way more in terms of number than the existing ones. So sometimes it means that you can pivot, change the product, and creating feature for the future customer, even if your current customer might not like them, like switching from the large company to the small one, or from the small to the large one, or pivoting to another industry, or sometimes focusing a little bit on the short-term service to be sure that you improve the product so that your customer will be much happier in the longer term. But that's something we always keep in mind, that future customers are way more valuable than the current ones. So what we always did in Odoo when we had issues, instead of putting all our effort to fix the issues for the customer right now, most of the time we put all our effort to improve the product, that the customer gets something in 6 months, not as fast, but at least all the future customers will have something clean. Now that we get bigger, we can afford to do both, to both satisfy the existing customer and focus a lot on that with one department which is dedicated to that, and also invest on the future ones. But when we were small, we couldn't afford doing both and focusing on both at once. Opening subsidiaries. So we just opened subsidiary in Antwerp, in Mexico, and in Buffalo in the state of New York. And what we always do is to find the right person is more important than choosing the right location. So we just opened an office in Buffalo this month. And the reason we did it there is simply because the right person wanted to go there. And when you have the right director, it's much, the success is guaranteed. If you have the right location because you go with a strategy and you don't have the right director, it can be more complex. So what we used to do, instead of starting from the strategy, we start from the opportunity. Let's find the right person. And when or if we find it, then we open a subsidiary. And we used to never recruit experienced VP of sales or CEOs, myself, or others, because we like to start when we open a subsidiary with someone we know we always worked with. So usually we take one of our best employees, sometimes a young person, but we are sure that it will succeed. Maybe he is not experienced in managing people, in scaling a company, but he knows the product, he has the right culture, he has the right mindset, he already knows exactly how the product works and the company works, so it's much safer. It's much easier to learn to grow a company rather than learning all the rest, like the culture and things like that. So what I think is that a young, overachieving existing employee is a safer choice to open a subsidiary. About fundraising, usually fundraising is not a solution when you are low in cash, mostly because the timing is the most important, most critical component of any negotiation. So when you try to negotiate fundraising when you are low in cash, it's probably the worst deal you can do. So it's better to stabilize, wait that the situation gets better, and then if you want to raise money, you can do it. And usually I recommend to raise money because you need to go one step further, not because you need money. So you raise money because you want to do a pivot or because you want to accelerate sales, but not because you are low in cash. If you are low in cash, raising money won't help you, because when you raise money, you start recruiting much more, investing in marketing because you get a lot of money, and then it impacts negatively your profitability. And 2 years later, your profitability problem is still there. It's even bigger than before, and you have to deal with it. So what I recommend is be sure that your model works, and then you can raise money, and then you can use this money to scale. Fundraising as a cost. Shares are the only thing you won't be able to buy when the company gets richer, because when the company gets richer, the sales are more expensive. Sorry. And then I can skip. Yeah, I lost a lot of money because I didn't read the law. It's probably the best. I read like 2 books per week, and the law is probably the most useful one I've read. The law of companies, le code des sociétés in French. It's very useful, especially when you start to negotiate shareholders agreement and so on. It's very different from one country to another. And when you know that, then you can crack everything and find the right way to negotiate around this. And I have a last tip for you, and then I will move to the questions and answers. Is use Odoo. And I'm serious because the right tool changes everything. Can you imagine a carpenter without a right tool? No, he would be very frustrated, he would be inefficient. And yet, every company in the world today, they have very bad tools for their employees. They don't even notice it anymore. They just learn to deal with it and live with it. But when you have the right tools, when you can automate your sales, generate leads, integrate with manufacturing inventory, when you have the right tools and it doesn't cost that much, it changes everything in the life of the company. If I would have had Odoo at the beginning of Odoo, I'm pretty sure I would have saved 1 or 2 years in the development of the company. So that was my last advice. I really recommend you to use Odoo. It changes everything in the way you operate your business. And now I have a few questions. If you have a few questions, I would be happy to answer any kind of question. If I find where the tweets are. Okay. Okay, let's see if you have questions. So question from Anthony Bievlet. By the way, hello Anthony. It's a friend of mine. 10 books to read. Yes. One is, I'll give you the 10 books I prefer. So in terms of negotiation, I really recommend negotiate, don't split the difference. Books to read. It's a book from an ex-FBI negotiator. It changed a lot the way I saw negotiation. So that's don't split the difference. Split the difference. There is a great book about the game theory, which is the strategy. The game strategy? Oh, I have a very bad memory, so I'll post something on YouTube. Hidden Life of Tree. It's not about the business, but it's amazing how trees involve. What else I read recently? Oh, I'll post something on YouTube about the books I recommend on the comments after. In addition to Odoo, which software do you use for remote collaboration? We use Discord. It's a gamer tool. But it has the huge advantage of, as opposed to Skype or Zoom or Google Hangout, you don't need to call people. People are just in different channels and you jump in a channel and discuss with them. It's exactly like you would be at the office. We are in constant communication with each other. Which is the vision of Odoo, the big picture? Okay, if you're interested about the big picture about Odoo, I do recommend our survival guide for doers. So I'll post it on the link after, or if someone can do it for me, and I will show you the book. So it's a book we wrote about the culture of the company, how we operate. It explains a lot of things. And it also explains what is the vision, but I have to find it in my emails. Oh, it's too slow. The vision of Odoo is the following. If you look at the software industry in the past, in order to understand the future, you always need to understand the past. Look at the databases. We started with a lot of database, DBase, Clipper, and then we had MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, and at the end, you only have PostgreSQL and Oracle, or a few other ones. Look at the operating system. In the beginning, you had Dr. DOS, MS-DOS, Unix, Minix, a lot of operating system. And at the end, like 10 years after, you only have Windows, Linux, and iOS. And it has been like that in every sector of the IT industry. I'm pretty sure the ERP or management software will follow the same path. Today, we have hundreds or thousands of management software. But we will have a consolidation on the best ones. And in a few years, only a few will remain and will share the market, like 2 or 3. My vision for Odoo is to be in these 2 or 3. I'm pretty sure we're in a very good position in terms of product and in terms of our ability to execute. We are probably the number 1, but we have a very big challenge because in front of us, we have key players like Microsoft to handle. But that's the vision is to remain that. The reason why we do Odoo, and usually the reason why we do is more important than what we want to do, is because small to mid-sized companies, they struggle. They struggle because they don't have the right tools, they spend a lot of time recording data in software, they don't have the tools to automate their basic tasks, and then employees suffer to the point where it becomes a sickness in some companies because nobody wants to work without the right tools. It's like having a carpenter who has no tools. He will be very frustrated after a few months. And yet, in most SMEs, it's like that. SMEs had to learn to live with bad tools, and I think we can solve that. And what we try to do with Odoo is to solve that and offer the right tools so that they can operate efficiently so that people get happy. Okay, let's get another question. Any new case for a game card? So, yes, we are working on a new game. So, I think he's referring to Scale Up, which is a game that we produce for schools and universities to learn management through a role-play game with cards, and you play with cards and in Odoo. You can get it on our website. We are working on a new game for accounting. Do you ever think going public? No, I'm the majority shareholder of Odoo. I have more than 50% of the shares. So I don't try to dilute myself too much. And I feel like public is refocusing the company on the short term, whereas we are a long-term thinking company. And I don't want that. And I don't want the constraints that comes with being public. If we can operate privately, why not? It's better. It's not an objective for sure. So I'm looking at the question. Public, I answer. When you pivot your business model, we need to have ready cash. Or if the company have cash flow problem when you suggest to pivot in the business model. I think every time I pivoted in the business model, I had cash flow issues. I always had cash flow issues in the pivot, and usually the pivot was an answer to a cash flow issue. Because we were struggling, we had to pivot, and then we pivot at the time. Of course, it's always better to pivot when you have no issue, but I think nobody does that. Everybody pivots when you have issue. And it's like you have 1 or 2 shots. You have to be sure you do it right and you do it fast. You cannot try to pivot 5 times because you have cash constraints. But I would say every company that pivots did it when they had difficulties. And usually you raise money when you have no difficulties. At least you should. Next question. Do you have a consideration on special pricing for the not-for-profit sector? It's a question we always have. First, during this crisis, because our consultants have less work than usual, for all the association that fights against the virus, we offer our services for free. So free subscription, free service. We have a project manager that will do what you need for your logistic issues or manufacturing or communication issue. We offer all our software and competencies for free if you are working on this crisis to fight against this crisis, whether it's distributing mass, manufacturing things. So we help the fire brigade in Italy to distribute materials and things like that. First. Apart from that, we have no pricing for NGOs because part of the challenge of Odoo is to make management software accessible to all SMEs. And in the accessibility, there is one thing which is critical for SME is to have a very low price. So we are fighting hard to give the best of the best in terms of feature, but at a very, very low price so that it gets affordable for every SMEs. And because of that, we have no margins on our price. Our prices are already the lowest we can afford. So our price for NGOs are the same than the SMEs because if we are margin to decrease the price, we would already have done it. Fabien, do you plan to come to India? Yes. So to be transparent, I actually wanted to relocate myself to India for 1 year, but I had to put the plan in pause because of the crisis. But I even subscribed my kids to a school in India, but everything is cancelled now. So we'll see. For now, planning is guessing. Is there a plan to integrate artificial intelligence tools or big data in Odoo? Yes. We are working on a lot of reporting tools, and we also have data cleansing tool, and we already have artificial intelligence, like when you scan vendor bills, we detect everything for you, or lead scoring, where we know the probability of closing a success rate of a lead based on the past, and things like that. What about the current project? Should you cut or pause the current project? I would say it depends, but it's clear that when you are in crisis, it's always better to refocus. And refocusing means sometimes stopping some activities. Doesn't mean you have to stop customer project. Doesn't mean But often the best way to refocus on the key things is to stop a few activities so that we can put more effort on the ones that matters. What do you think about our pricing in Africa? It's related to Odoo. Our pricing in Africa is great. It's only $6 per user. And partners even have a commission based on that discount. So I think no other software succeeded to do such a low price than we did in Africa for such a well-advanced software. Do you target still a question about Odoo, so I will answer questions about Odoo. Do you target large company or mostly small and mid-size? We do a lot of large companies. I don't know if I have something here to show you. That was the webinar I did I think I've in this. We do with a lot of large companies. We have companies like Hyundai, McKinsey, Danone, The Post in France. Where are the companies we work with? Sodexo, Geely, here I have testimonials here. Engie, you can see here Auchan. So we do replace a lot of SCPs in companies. We work with Shell, Securitas, Médecins Sans Frontières. So we do work with large companies. We like that. But the reason why I speak a lot about small and mid-sized companies is because the large companies are a saturated market. Most of them, or pretty much all of them, already have management software, and they don't want to replace it even though it's very bad. For the small and mid-sized companies, it's the complete opposite. Less than 20% of the small to mid-sized companies have a solution for their needs. They all have a lot of Excel, different software, an e-commerce that is not connected with the stock inventory. They don't have very good things for the manufacturing or for social marketing or human resource. So the need for the small and mid-sized companies is much higher. But of course, we have a department dedicated to the large one, so we do both. Okay, I'll come back to the questions. Do you think it's time to expand operation, or is it at a time where we have? I would say it depends from one case to another. So the first advice I have is to not listen to my advice because every company is different. For us, we decided to accelerate the recruitment of the developers. So we accelerate there because when the competitors are slowing down, we want to continue moving forward. We continued recruiting the salespeople, but we decelerate, so we slowed down a little bit on the recruitment of consultant. That's what we decided to do during the crisis. You said everyone needs guidance. Who guides you in managing Odoo? I would say I have a lot of good collaborators in the company, colleagues in the company, and I read a lot of books, but I don't have mentors, or I do have investors, but I don't listen to them a lot. Not enough. I should listen to them more. Any recommendation how to price implementation services? The first advice I have for implementation service is to look at the maintenance of everything you implement or you develop. So over the past months, I discussed with a lot of partners that are implementation service companies, and they sell service to deploy Odoo. And for a lot of them, they had a structure like 3 project managers, 5 or 6 developers, and a few admins and managers. And when I checked their revenues, if they would have invoiced 20% of every development they would have done as a maintenance on a yearly basis, their revenue would have been 2 times bigger than what it is today. So the company would have been 2 times bigger than what it is today if over the past 5 years they would have sold maintenance contract at a price of 20% of the project. So the first thing is not about how much you price, but more about what you price. And the maintenance are more profitable, higher margins, because when you upgrade a customer, usually you upgrade 10 to 20 customers at the same time, so you have economies of scales. About the price, I have no advice except if you are overloaded, increase your price. So when it's especially true when you are alone or a self-employed person. One of the mistakes I did when I was small or alone was not to increase my price fast enough. And know that what I should have done is to start with any price. Okay, it was 200 euro per day at the beginning. And what I should have done is increase the price by 20% every quarter if I was overloaded, until I won't be overloaded anymore. So I would say, if you look at your service, if you have difficulties to deliver all your customer, maybe it's worth increasing the price. But it's very difficult to give you an advice on pricing, because I would say it's different from one company or one context or country. Are you afraid of the community version beating the enterprise version? That's a good question. Make me laugh, because the community version is our product. I mean, it's not one product against the other. We are the developer of both the community version and the enterprise version. So it's not like they compete to each other. They all benefit from each other. If the community version brings a lot of free users, and it's good for enterprise because we can upsell these free users, and it's a free marketing, because word of mouth is the strongest marketing you can get. In the other hand, the enterprise version allows us to generate a lot of revenues, and we use these revenues to improve the community version and the enterprise version. So they both work hand in hand each other. So it's not like we are afraid of something. It's perfectly running well together. We continue to keep a good balance between both, with 80% in the feature in the open source version and 20% of the features like accounting or bank integration in the enterprise version. And we continue to have a price of enterprise that is so low that it makes it ridiculous to develop in the community version if you need a feature of enterprise. So it's not that we are afraid. Both products play their role, and they play it very well, and things work well together. Do you think that Odoo will boom after COVID-19? Yes. First, what surprised me is that in Q1 we did 54% growth. So we basically did not reduce our target, and I'm pretty sure that we'll succeed at 50% growth or something during Q2. Maybe a little bit less, but not so much. So the impact of the crisis for us is not that high. I mean, there are a lot of companies that need to digitalize themselves because of the fact that they have to work remotely now. First. But then I also think that the crisis will be hard, but it will be short. It's not a financial crisis. It's not yet. It will be maybe, but means there is still a lot of money on the markets. And I'm pretty sure that when the health crisis will be solved, the companies will start running even faster than before, especially for software like us who help them to work online and remotely. So it's unfortunate, but it's clear that Odoo will grow much faster after the crisis. Fabien, where did you get the idea of naming the company Odoo, and why? So first, the company was called Tiny ERP, like a tiny software. And then I was at the board of a very large company, and they told me, why should we pay 1 million euro for a tiny software? So I came back at the office and said, we have to change the name. So we picked Open ERP because we were open source and because we were doing what ERPs do. But after a few years, ERP was not anymore what we did, because we do much more than traditional ERP and we are much easier than them. So we don't want to be compared with ERPs anymore, because it's not an ERP, it's more a suite of business apps, first. And second, some large company think that open source is not good, like security things and so on. They are completely wrong, but still, it's like that. So OpenERP proved to be a very bad naming too. So having done 2 times the same mistake of choosing a name that has a meaning, for the 3rd time I changed to a name that means nothing, which was Odoo. And for the story, I purchased Odoo and OpenERP at the same time because I hesitated between both in 2008, I think, and I just picked the wrong one. Don't you think to increase price will create a fatal crisis in the long term? I'm not sure if it refers to Odoo or the market, but for sure the vision of Odoo is to try to decrease the price if we can. So our mindset is to be the most affordable possible for SMEs and to be accessible to everyone. So we work for the mass. We don't try to optimize the revenue we can get from one customer. What do you suggest to manage employees in the crisis? It's just to be present, communicate more, work more with them, more involved in the bottom discussions. That is very important, especially in times of crisis. So you said you have 2 or 3 focus topics at Odoo. You mentioned product development. So if I look at the past 2 weeks, I mostly worked in R&D product with the product owners. That was the main thing. But I also worked on our internal process, like I released a new implementation on methodology, an action plan to help partners during the crisis, like we pay our commission in 7 days now. So mostly working on our internal processes. Fabien, what is the biggest unsolved challenge you have today? I would say we don't have a challenge of market. The market is huge. Odoo has less than 1% of the market, so we can grow a lot in this market. We have no problems of products. Our product is years ahead of the competition. No issue there. The main issue we have is execution. I would say it's us. It's our ability to execute. It's not easy to have 900 employees and go to 1,400. It's not easy to keep 50-60% growth when you have 1,000 people. So I would say it only depends on us. It's more about scaling, recruiting efficiently, onboarding people, training them. Be sure that as you scale the size of the team, they don't decrease their efficiency. So that's the main challenge of Odoo today. Is Odoo always going to work with partners? Is everything is going to the Odoo to the cloud? Of course. We even did a cloud for the partners, which is odoo.sh. So I mean, it's obvious every company is moving to the cloud now, even more than ever. And what we do is just to help the partners go on the cloud with an offer like Odoo.sh that is basically free for them. So we lose money just to help partners to do the transition efficiently with a full continuous integration platform, hosting, mail servers integrated, and so on. Fabien, why is the community version user interface not the same than the enterprise one? So I think I can generalize the question. Why is there a feature in enterprise that is not in community? The answer is obvious. We need to create a difference. The reason why there is no accounting app in the community is because we need to create value for enterprise. It doesn't mean we don't like community. It doesn't mean we don't grow community. We actually invest a lot in Odoo community to make it better. But we still keep some features in enterprise because we need to create value so that people can buy it. And the look and feel and the usability of being faster to use is one of the value of Odoo Enterprise. We actually like this value because it makes you feel that the products are different. Actually, they are not, because Enterprise is a set of applications on top of Odoo Community. They both rely on each other. But it gives the feeling that when you buy Enterprise, you have a different product, and I think it's good in terms of marketing. How do you leverage the service quality and the time spent? What worked a lot for us to improve our efficiency in terms of delivering service is to work on the methodologies. So we released the implementation methodology book for the partners, and I recommend you to have a look at it if you are a partner. If not, you can drop me an email, fp@odoo.com, and I can forward it to you. Why do you charge a partnership fee? That's a good question. For the same reason why we charge a certification. We get something like 5,000 requests to become a partner per month. If we just say to everyone, okay, you are a partner, what will happen? First, that doesn't mean anything to become a partner. If it's free, it doesn't mean anything. Everyone can be a partner. It doesn't mean you are a good company. It doesn't mean you invest in Odoo. Because we put a fee, it means that the companies that are partners, they invested to become a partner, and it really means something, first. Second, the fee is the best entry barrier you have to separate the ones who just want the marketing or being a partner and so on, and the ones who will really invest in something. I mean, if you are not ready to put the 500 euro we ask to be a partner, the first level entry, it's probably that you are not ready to invest in selling such software. I mean, what we do is complex. Selling ERPs, it's complex business. You need to invest in training your teams, in certification, in order to be sure you do it right. And the only way to do it is to charge a fee so that we are sure the partners will invest. And because we have this fee, we can invest to help the partners. We can have account managers that help them invest in improving our training materials, methodology for the partners. So everything goes together. It's mandatory to have a fee for the partners, otherwise it's not valuable at all. Your take on Zoho? I would say Zoho is quite cool because it's a suite of apps, but they're very, very, very far behind Odoo because their apps are not integrated. They have an opposite challenge than SAP. The big ERPs like SAP and Microsoft Dynamics, their challenge is to become easy and to do all the modern things like social marketing, email gateway integration, e-commerce. They don't do that out of the box. So their challenge is they do a lot of features, but they have to become easy. Zoho is a little bit more modern. It's on the cloud. It's a little bit easier than traditional ERP, but their challenge is to become an ERP. The inventory or the accounting or the manufacturing, nothing is integrated. It's different application. The accounting is not even usable, I think, except in India. But based on the standards you expect from an accounting software, it's very far. So Zoho is more like Salesforce, a CRM player that try to enter the ERP market, but they still need a few years in order to have something, in my opinion. In terms of marketing, they market it well. They make you feel that with Zoho One, you have a lot of things, but when you go and you really test the things, it's not what it is. Okay, let's say the last questions. Does Odoo work according to Scrum standard? No, we don't do Scrum. We do have a lean development methodology, but it's not Scrum. It's our choice. The reason we don't use Scrum is because I don't like the inter-sprint. You always have issue because you have to finish, everyone has to finish their development and delivery at some date, and then start the new specification at some date and then finish at the other. And it creates a lot of complexity, and in reality you are always late, have to push back, and then it doesn't work well to have fixed short deliveries of 1 week or 2 weeks. So what we do is we work more in the R&D in a Kanban approach, where we continuously develop tasks, and every task has its own rhythm. But it's still a lean with all the flow in a traditional Kanban. Okay, thank you everyone. I'm not sure I could answer everyone, but you can still ask questions in the video after the stream, when the stream ends, and I will try to answer on the chat on YouTube. Thank you. Bye.